This is T-Weeder tool with another how-to video. The T-Weeder, if you have any property on a lake, river, pond, and you battle with weed problems, take a look at the T-Weeder. It might be the solution you're looking for. Today I'm going to be looking at the replacement of a friction disc on an Ariens Snowblower. This is a snowblower. It's a 2008 model. And this is the 1130 DLE, 11 horsepower, 30-inch cut. We live in Minnesota and get some pretty heavy and deep snow at times. A couple days ago I had this is called the shift rod, and I had my shift rod break, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but the rod broke here. It's a two-piece linkage that goes from the shift lever up to the dashboard. And anyway, this shift rod broke here, and I had somebody I know weld it together. So as you can see, it's a two-piece linkage there. And that goes from the shift lever for the speed control there on the right. You can see right here. And I was having some issues before anyway. When I shifted into reverse, if I shifted into reverse 1, this setting right here, it was still creeping forward, so I know it had to be adjusted. And this linkage goes from this lever up here down to the shift lever on the machine down here. So I took this off to have it repaired, and then while I had it off, I took the transmission cover off, which I'll show you in a minute, and I saw that the friction disc was worn down quite a bit. It still had a little bit of rubber on it. I looked at an Ariens OEM disc, and it was about $25 plus shipping. I found this one on eBay, and it's supposed to work with this snowblower, and this is just an aftermarket third-party disc. So I'm going to take the blower apart. I tried looking on YouTube to see if there was any tutorials or videos on this particular model. The transmission's a little different than some of the others I saw. Couldn't find anything, so I thought I would document the disc replacement as I went along, and hopefully this will help somebody else out. To start out, I'm going to tip it up on the front as they recommend for removing the transmission cover. One thing I'll note, a lot of the models that I did see information on, it showed right down here, this is the setup for the friction disc. When you engage this lever up here on the dashboard, this one here, it puts tension on that cable, and that pulls the friction disc and the drive plate together. Some of the other models have a bolt right down there on that mechanism, and that bolt would be used to adjust the tension. This one has a screw setup, a spring and a screw setup for adjusting the tension, so just a little bit of a difference. The newer models have this particular setup, even though this one it's now 6 years old. I bought it in 2008, so it's about 6 years old. So we'll get going. This is what they call the service position for the snowblower. Just tip it up on its front like that. To start working on it, I'll take off the tires, and on this particular model it just has a very simple clip on the axle. I just release those clips, and the tires will slide off on each side. And then there is 6 bolts, and there's one here, and then there's 2 on each side on the side, which would be a little easier to remove those bolts once the tires are off, but I could do it without that. Also, just to mention, when you tip it up like this, to keep gas from running out, make sure that your gas tank is at least less than half full. And if you want to either siphon it out or remove at least half of the gas from your tank so it doesn't run out. Okay, I've got the tires off, and I've taken the 6 bolts off the transmission cover plate. Here's the tires, and you can see the little clips. They just, with the screwdriver, you can just slide it off. And then there's a little key that goes on the axle, and you can kind of see it here. And this little key, just make sure when you put that you put that somewhere safe, so you don't lose it. But when you put your tire back on, make sure that key is in place. It just goes into the little slot right there in the tire. So it's easier if you orient your axle with the slot on the top like this, lay the key in there, and then just slide your tire on. And then also I'll mention on the right side, of the axle. There's a washer, as you can see, that's there, and then this piece, there's a sleeve that runs over the axle like that, and that can slide off or on. I'm not sure. For now, I'll just leave it, and it's got, you can see the little ribs on it. But anyway, if you see that that starts to slide out, don't be concerned. That's normal, and that can just slide all the way back in. I may have to remove this axle for this to give me better access. I'm not sure. Once those bolts are removed, you just remove the transmission cover, and there's a little lip on the bottom of that bar, and that edge just comes under the lip. And then you can see the insides, and on this one, it doesn't have any, the only chain is on that far right sprocket, and then the gears are just meshed together there. But I need to take that friction wheel off on the back there, and as you can see, the rubber on it is pretty thin. So I'm going to have to try and figure out what I need to do to get that hex shaft that the friction wheel is attached to out of there, so that I can slide the friction wheel off and put the new one on. What I have done, there's a little cotter pin you can see there, and that was on the hex shaft back there, where you can kind of see the white grease. And what I'm going to try and do, I remove that cotter pin, so hopefully the friction wheel here can slide all the way off the hex thing, the hex axle. And what I'm going to do is remove, there's 3 bolts on the side that hold this bearing holder in place. I'm going to remove these 3 bolts and take that off, and then I'm hoping that I can just slide that hex axle to the left, and then create enough clearance so that I can get the friction wheel off without having to maybe remove the whole axle and all of that assembly. We'll see how that goes. I might have to do the same thing here on the right side possibly, to create enough space to move that axle that the friction wheel is mounted to off of there. Okay, I've removed the little retaining piece, and then the bearing. You can see right there the triangular retaining piece, and then the bearing there. I removed that from the left side, and now the hex shaft, what I'm looking at here is, if you can see in there, there's another, I moved the friction wheel all the way over to the left side. There's another cotter pin right there on the hex shaft on the right side, and then I don't know if you can tell, but you can see the hex shaft has a kind of a gear, or I don't know what you call it, but on the end of it, it goes into another little retaining. Let me see if I can get focused in on where I'm trying to look here. Okay, so you can see it's kind of notched, and it goes into another little sleeve on the right side where the chain and the sprocket and everything goes around. I'm going to see if I can slide the hex shaft to the left, and then I can hopefully slide that friction wheel assembly off the right side of the shaft after I remove that cotter pin that's right there. Okay, using a needle nose pliers, I was able to remove that other cotter pin from the hex shaft, and then the shaft easily pulled out the end of the hex shaft went through a sprocket on the right side that the chain wraps around, and then it goes through that sprocket and then through the bearing on the right side. So I've got this out, and now there's some little washers on the ends of this assembly, so I have to remove those because those go into the little forks in between the assembly and the forks on the top and bottom. So I'll make sure I set those washers aside so they don't get lost, and then I should be able to hopefully slide this whole assembly off the shaft, off the right side of the shaft. Okay, there's the hex shaft, and there's the friction wheel assembly, and once I slid it over to the left, and it was very easy to slide everything off, and you can see there's the shift assembly. You can see the 2 forks, there's an upper and a lower that the friction wheel assembly will fit in between when I reassemble it. And I'll clean this this drive wheel or this drive pulley off real good so that the friction wheel can make sure it's got good traction on there. You don't want to get any grease on this or on the friction wheel, the new friction wheel when you assemble. You want to make sure everything is really clean. So the next thing I need to do now is on the and you can kind of see on this friction wheel there's not much rubber left on there. It's getting pretty thin, so good time to replace it. So I have to get some kind of a star bit to try and release these 3 bolts that hold that friction wheel onto the assembly. So that'll be the next step. Okay, just for reference, these star-shaped bolts that are on the friction wheel, it's a T40 star bit, and you can see I've got one here, and I'm using this on a 1/4" hex impact driver. And I just did one so far. I need 2 hands to do this, so I don't think I can. We'll see if it'll work while I'm trying to film it, but like I said, it's a T40 bit. Nope, I'm going to have to hold on with 2 hands to do this, but T40 bit, and then those will come right out. Okay, there's the new friction plate assembled to the shift assembly, and you can see the old one compared. There's not much rubber left on that. It's getting pretty thin, and there's also a lot of, you can see the rubber residue. You want to clean as much of that out of the inside of the transmission box too. It's just from the rubber friction disc wearing, you know, on the drive plate as it's being used. So I'll put everything back together, reverse order. One thing I'll mention, the 6 bolts that were holding the cover on the transmission, in some of the videos I saw, it said that they were 1/2 inch, but these were actually 3/8 inch, which I'm sure you'd have figured that out soon enough. But 3/8 inch bolts on that, and then the bolts on the holding the friction disc on, those were T40 star bits. Okay, I've got the friction disc assembly back on the hex shaft, and then the shift forks are mounted correctly there. As you can see, the washers need to be on the inside of the top and bottom, not on the outside. And then I put some white low temp lithium grease on there because that needs to slide back and forth. And I'll also end up, once I get it together, I'll put some of this white lithium grease on the hex shaft because it slides back and forth on there. Probably also put some on these gears to lubricate them a little bit. Here's the product that I'm using, and I just take a little bit out of a tube and put it on I just put it on a plastic spoon there and then apply it with my fingertip as I need. So now I'm going to put the bearings back in. I have to get that chain sprocket over on the right side of the hex shaft in place before I put the shaft through the bearings over here on the right side, and then I can assemble the bearing assembly on the left side. Okay, everything's back together. Ran into a little challenge getting those cotter pins back on the hex shaft, and I found a really easy way to do it. I was able to just take an adjustable crescent wrench and a hammer, and first I oriented the flex shaft so that it was in the up and down position, and then I just put the cotter pin in a little bit. I held the flex shaft in place with the adjustable wrench, just kind of like so, to keep it from turning, and then I took the hammer and I was able to get the hammer up through the top here, and just holding the shaft in place I was able to tap it back down into the hole. I did that on both sides, and that worked really easily. I'm going to put some grease now on the flex shaft where it slides back and forth here with the shift lever, and grease that up, and then I'll grease these gears a little bit, and then I want to make sure that this friction wheel is completely clean of any grease, as is the drive disc down here. Make sure that they're completely clean, no grease on them for obvious reasons, and then put everything back together, and it should I'll have to do some adjustments. You need to adjust it so that it's, you know, using that shift bar, make sure that the range of motion on that shift assembly is proper so that it goes into reverse and into the forward gears the right way. So using that little at the end of it, there's a little adjuster, you can see that there, where you can adjust the length of the shift rod to get the proper range on that. That should take care of it. So there you go. I hope that's helpful. That was the information I had been looking for, couldn't find it, so I hope this helps somebody else out. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video and found it useful, please like it, and if you want, follow me on YouTube. Thank you.